Theorem. Pythagorean theorem is a formula that is used in a right angle triangle. It states that the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So if we notice, this is our right angle triangle right here. If I draw a square that has the same length as what we call our hypotenuse, so the diagonal line is always your hypotenuse. It's across from your right angle. If I draw a square there, that gives me 25 little units. So if I break that up into, if this was 5 and I make a square, then I have 5 by 5 larger square. If I have the height of my triangle being 4 units, then my square is going to be 4 by 4 or 16 little squares. And if the base of my triangle is 3, then if I make a square, a 3 by 3, that's going to give me 9 little squares. And if I add up 16 plus 9, that gives me 25. So the square of side A plus the square of side B is equal to the square of side C. So that's Pythagorean theorem. So in order to use Pythagorean theorem, we need to know what the sides are called. So always across from the right angle is your hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always labeled C. The other two sides can be whichever side that you want to label them as, either A or B. I personally like to put B on the bottom because then I know it's the bottom. But you can put A and B wherever you want, as long as C is always across from the right angle, and the hypotenuse will always be the longest side of your triangle. So if you're doing your calculations and it's not the longest side, then you know you've made a mistake. We're going to find the length of the unknown sides using Pythagorean theorem. So the first thing that you want to do is label the sides of your triangle. Across from your right angle is C, and then the other two sides are A and B. The formula for Pythagorean theorem is A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. So we're going to substitute in the values for A and B in this case. So A is 16, so I have 16 squared plus 12 squared is equal to x squared, because that is the variable of side C. 16 squared is the same as taking 16 times 16, or you might have a little squared button on your calculator. And 16 squared is 256. 12 squared is 144, or 12 times 12, and that is equal to x squared. 256 plus 144 is 400, and that's going to be equal to x squared. Eventually, you're going to learn about rules of algebra. So right now, we need to think about getting x all by itself. The formula doesn't say that x is equal to a plus b, but we need to calculate what x is instead of x squared. So we need to do the opposite of squaring a number. So the opposite of squaring a number is taking the square root. So in order to go from x squared to x, we need to take the square root of 400. So we're doing the opposite operation. And the square root of 400 is 20. So the value of x is 20 units. We don't know what this is being measured in. Let's do another example, because sometimes this can be confusing, especially in the first time. So the first thing I want to do is label my sides. Across from the right angle is always C, and the other two sides are A and B. It doesn't matter which one is which. So One way that I could do this is I could do a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. But what happens is I'm not finding c. I already know c. So another way that we can express this formula, and if you can just trust me on this one, is that I can say that a squared is equal to c squared take away b squared. And when we get into more of algebra and equations, you're going to see why this works. Or we can also write it as b squared is equal to c squared minus a squared. So we are subtracting the smaller sides from the larger side in order to get the leftover smaller side. So we are looking for b in our case. So we are going to use this version of the formula. So instead of using a squared plus b squared equals c squared, I'm going to use b squared is equal to c squared, take away a squared. So I'm going to substitute in what I know. I know that the value of b is actually being denoted with a y. So y squared is equal to 8 squared minus 6 squared. 8 squared is 8 times 8, and 8 times 8 is 64. 6 squared is 6 times 6, and 6 times 6 is 36. So I am subtracting 36 from 64. 64 take away 36 is 28. Now, just like before, in order to go from a y squared to a y, I have to take the square root of my number. So the square root of 28 is 5.3 if I round it to the nearest tenth. And again, I don't know what these sides are measured in, so I don't need to include any units. Let's do 2 more examples. So start by labeling the sides of your triangle. This is C, and your other 2 sides are A and B. Because I'm looking for b, that's my unknown, I'm going to use b squared is equal to c squared minus a squared. B is being represented by the letter n, so it's n squared. C is 15, so 15 squared. Take away a, which is 12 squared. 15 squared is 15 times 15, which is 225. Subtract 12 times 12, or 12 squared, is 144. 225 take away 144 is 81. And in order to go from n squared to n, we have to take the square root of 81. And again, the square root is a symbol on your calculator. So that's something that you can use your calculator for. And the square root of 81 is 9. I don't know my unit, so I can just keep it as 9. And the last example, I'm going to start by labeling my sides. Across from the right angle is always C, and my other 2 sides are A and B. Again, I'm looking for b, so I'm going to use b squared is equal to c squared, take away a squared. B is being denoted by the letter d, so it's d squared is equal to 25 squared, take away 24 squared. D squared is equal to 25 squared, which is 625. 24 squared, or 24 times 24, is 576. 625 take away 576 is 49. In order to go from d squared to d, I need to take the square root of 49. So I'm using my calculator for this. The square root of 49 is 7. I don't have any measurements units, so I can keep it as 7. If you have any questions about this, please reach out, send me an email, sign up for a virtual help session, and I will see you in the next lesson.